images per second. Images per second is how many times am I taking a picture and storing it per second. Does anybody know what the definition of real-time video is? No gaps in watching somebody. Typically it is what? 30 IPS. Capturing 30 images per second to give me fluid motion. None of that stutter stepping kind of feeling. If I go down to actual information, people will argue with you, and nobody here did that, that 22 IPS is really, you can't tell the difference between frames at 22 IPS. Your eye can't. But by definition of the industry, 30 IPS is real time. Okay, so when somebody says, I want to record video real time, that means 30 IPS. What is the standard? What are some of the standards that people record video out there? Not many people record 30 IPS, but what are some of the standards? Back in the VCR days, Steve, what did it used to be?
I don't know, it's too long ago.
1 image per 3 seconds. Then it became 1 image per second, and then it got really crazy because you had to change that T120 tape about 4 times a day if you went any more than that, right? Because T120 meant that was a 2-hour video tape, right? Because that's what you watched a 2-hour movie when you rented movies at the movie store. Who remembers renting movies at the movie store?
Oh, yeah. I worked in those before my
Matt used to own a couple. So the box. So basically, as the things changed, resolutions went up. We were able to capture video a little differently electronically. We got away from using videotapes, and now it is actually how many times are we capturing the image per second that we're laying down in terms of digital space on a hard drive, right, or whatever it was at the time. What are some factors when it comes to frame rate? So I'm sorry, back to my question. What are some typical frame rates that people record video? Nowadays, it's not uncommon for you to see 30 IPS video in somebody's house because they just will store video for either a short period of time or they've got a lot more money to know what to do with, and they can capture 30 IPS video on hard drives in their house for a long time. So there really is no standard on what it has to be. A long time ago, after the Murrow building bombing, the federal government, the DOJ, released a study that came out with recommendations about classifications of buildings and stuff like that, and where they were and how they were rated and so on, what their threat level was and so on and so forth. And they standardized sort of on 7.5 IPS. So I would say, and as far as a standard goes, 7.5 IPS is pretty typical, but 7.5 and 15 are probably today's more typical things, and then 30 is not so uncommon anymore, as I was saying. So I want to show you some of this stuff. This is a frame rate comparison video that shows you the difference in, notice how smooth the video appears while the camera's moving. What I always ask people when they ask me how many images should I capture is, what are you trying to record? If I'm a gaming customer, or I'm trying to count, or I'm trying to capture where somebody's counting money or jewelry or something of high value, and I've got a really good scene where I'm zoomed in very, very close on the area, effectively, I don't have to worry about, I want to get all of the sleight of hand stuff. I want to know that somebody's slowly moving something under their hand and putting it up their sleeve, right? If you go to a casino, the cameras are zoomed in every spot around the table, right? There's a camera on every spot, and they're watching your hands, and they're watching the cards, and they're watching the dealer's hands. So they're going to capture at 30 IPS. If I'm looking at a parking lot, big giant field of view, objects are much smaller, the detail's much smaller, I'm just really kind of looking at general surveillance. Do I need 30 IPS? Probably not, right? If I'm trying to see what's going on around a magnetometer and an X-ray machine at a security checkpoint, is it more important that I have more frames per second? But you understand that the difference in the smaller that number, the more space between it capturing an image. Here's one other rule of thumb. If I'm running right? If I'm running, how far can I move if you're capturing me 1 image a second versus 7.5 images a second, 10 images a second, or 30 images a second? I'm not that fast at all. I may look fast. I may look really, really fast, but I'm not. And so I'm not going to move very far in a difference between 1 image a second and 7.5, or between 3.5 and 7.5. Now, if I'm trying to capture things going by on the road, looking at license plates, or I'm trying to capture the side view of a car, or one of those kind of things like that, I need to capture more images a second because I need to get, the thing is moving very fast in a second, or the space between the first image and the second image is blur. Okay, so if things are moving faster, you might need more images per second to get the detail of it. That's another way to look at it. Looking at a conveyor belt with material going by on a conveyor belt, and they want to identify that something left the facility. Here it is going on the truck. If it's moving fast, then I might need to capture a few more images a second than I would if it was just looking at people walking around in the facility. SLR photography. Anybody a photographer? What happens when you change the shutter speed? If I make the shutter speed faster, I need more light. That's why you have a flash, right? So if I slow the shutter speed down and I'm looking at something that's moving, it looks blurry. So fast moving car going through the toll booth, very high speed capture.